My name is Rob Arnold. I'm the executive director of Poets House. Yeah, I know. Woo. Let's woo Poets House. That was my colleague Subin who did that. So a little biased, but I'm so glad that you all are here for a reading by some of my favorite poets. And I also just want to say that Poets House is a library. It's a literary space. It's a community space. It's your space. So those of you who are local to New York City, please do come by. Upstairs we have what I thought was 80,000 books of poetry, but it's actually 100,000 books, journals, and other poetry-related items upstairs, all free and all waiting for you to experience them. So if you're not a power user of Poets House, I invite you to do come and be a power user. And speaking of power users, I just want to give it up for my colleagues at Poets House who do amazing work here. Who did all of the substantive work of planning this series, putting this showcase together, this amazing showcase that has more than 3,000 books of poetry. My colleague Leo in the back was amazing work there. And I also want to thank the Battery Park City Authority, who are program partners on this event. And I will say this, last year when the NEA collapsed and when the NEH collapsed and a lot of our program funding collapsed as a result, Battery Park City Authority stepped up and filled in the gap for us and made sure that we could keep programming, and they doubled down on their contribution to Poets House this year to make sure that we could keep this programming open and accessible to all of you. So give it up to them. A really huge hearty round of applause to the Battery Park City Authority. And that's it for me. I am going to get out of the way and give it up to my colleague Subin Lee, who's going to be our MC for the evening. Subin.
Thank you, Rob. Hi, welcome to Poets House. Thank you for being with us here tonight. My name is Subin. I am an Access Services Assistant here, and I'm excited to welcome you to this special event. For those of you who may be new to the space, Poets House is a nonprofit poetry library that is free and open to the public. Our 100,000 volume library is one of the most comprehensive public poetry collections in the world. Poets House also holds exhibitions, special collections, and public programming, such as our Showcase Reading Series. That's what this is. This event celebrates the 30th Poets House Showcase, which is a literary exhibition and reading series that captures the breadth of contemporary poetry publishing. This winter showcase comprises over 3,000 poetry publications from 2024 and 2025. The next reading in this series will be on February 19th at 7 p.m. and on February 28th we'll be having a community reading from 2 to 5, which gives poets who published a book of poetry in 2024-2025 an opportunity to read a poem. But today we're here to celebrate recently published collections by Cameron Awkward-Rich, Jennifer Espinoza, Chet'la Sebree, and Annie Wenstrup. I'm going to introduce... Oh gosh. Okay, Cameron Awkward-Rich reads from An Optimism. Jennifer Espinoza reads from I Don't Want to Be Understood. Chet'la Sebree reads from Blue Opening, and Annie Wenstrup reads from the Museum of Unnatural Histories. Cameron Awkward-Rich, Jennifer Espinoza, and Chet'la Sebree and Annie Wenstrup's newest collections explore rifts between personal and collective memory, penning moving poems on history and survival. Upon finding themselves in contended spaces, the museum, the archive, the dictionary, and the airport, these poets radically attend to the world around them through some of the most elegant ontological verse in recent years. It is my pleasure to introduce Cameron Awkward-Rich, who is the author of 3 collections of poetry, Sympathetic, Little Monster, Dispatch, and An Optimism. Cameron's creative work can be found in Poetry, American Poetry Review, Kenyon Review, and elsewhere, and has been supported by fellowships from Cave Canem, The Watering Hole, and the Lannan Foundation.
Hello. One thing that's true is that I have a PowerPoint. Let me just make sure that it's working. Yeah. Okay. So I am going to read one very long thing. maybe one shorter thing also, but mostly just one very long thing. And the thing is a palinode, which is a word for a poem or another kind of writing that retracts something, some argument, some central contention from a previously published thing. In this case, this is a palinode of an essay that I wrote about the 20th century poet, priest, lawyer, kind of all-around badass Pauli Murray, who recently has been enjoying, a posthumous kind of rediscovery of their centrality to Black feminism, to civil rights litigation, so on and so forth. But also, in this kind of recovery project of Murray, people are very interested in narrating them as somebody who would have been or was trans. And I don't know. It was sort of like sometime in 2020, somebody was like, do you know about Pauli Murray? And I was like, why do you think that I should know about Pauli Murray? And then I read basically everything, and I was like, oh, are you my dad? And then I wrote a lot about them. And so this is a thing which is kind of a poem, kind of an essay, kind of a retraction of an essay. And it comes with these slides. It begins with 2 epigraphs. The first one. The proximities of the archive disperse the feeling of otherwise being consumed by the present and its many emergencies. Jules Gill Peterson. Reading only with and for transsexuals. I read for my life. J. Prosser. Palinode. Dear Polly, I've been trying to write about you for some years now and have not been able. Well, other people might say I have been. I've given talks. There's an essay under contract, but I haven't been able yet to say what I mean. Lately, each thing I do is a form of the epistolary, apostrophe, some particular impossible you. The problem is, of course, one of audience, address. I cannot have a single thought. From what I can tell, you didn't have that problem. You were, I think, able to hold something like a nation in your head. Still, it must have eventually driven you mad, from scene to scene, institution to institution, looking for felicitous language, the precise vocabulary, syntax for making clear what to you was always clear, that you were alive. Anyway, I've been having trouble lately. The sentences either do not come or lie flat or say only what is obvious to say. Life hangs beneath a question. Dear Polly, am I right to say that, for you, the poet was, at best, a kind of prophet? Not a fortune teller, but in the biblical tradition. Someone who could sense the future looming in the present, who issues the warning, if we do not change our course, we will be, and thus are already, doomed. Dear Polly, in interviews, you say that writing was what enabled you to bear your life beneath the question. It was what you did, that is, when no other action was possible. A little valve for when the pressure built. Anger, otherwise, would kill you. When asked, at 67, at the edge of your 5th career, if you would ever let yourself rest, you said, in short, I'd be dead if I did. In the essay, the one under contract, the one I am already ashamed of, I make arguments, or try to. First, I argue that you understood yourself as living somehow in the future. Ahead of myself, is how you put it once, 21 years ahead. Second, I argue that this is a trans way of occupying time, living out the future in the present tense, embodying for others, for yourself, Ernst Bloch's not yet. It's easy to idealize, being imbued with the sheen of futurity, endless becoming, longing that propels us, etc. But it's terrible, you know. Or it is also terrible. People take up all kinds of postures toward the future. Hope is one. Dread. Militarized fear. I write, if all goes well, to find out what I do not know. Dear Polly, before the war, you had been in love. Not just, that is, experiencing the feeling of love, but held inside of it. Held and then no longer held because love could not see you as you were, a man you tried for over a decade to become. Sex was a scene of your impossibility. People interpret this in all kinds of ways. False consciousness, schizophrenia, ego-dystonic lesbianism, transsexuality, the disease of reading, and sure, me too. In a prior scene, I am 13. I've just finished a novel, Middlesex. I am crouching on the blue carpet in my blue room. I am straining to sense how I might too have secreted inside the capacity to change. Dear Polly, about you, it was once reported that your errands were carefully planned so that you could travel in a circle, not wasting time. In the essay, I argue that, although by the late 1960s or so, you had fallen out of the future, taken up residence in the past-present tense, come to feel history more and more as a series of closed loops, we can sense, nonetheless, in your poems, your photographs, your strained sentences, your trans life preserved in the aesthetic, your still latent futures given form. Dear Polly, in 2011, in California, I rode my bicycle for miles to the office of a doctor whose name I do not any longer know. He gave me what you nearly a century ago had wanted with a kind of fervor I can never muster. I'm not saying it was easy. There had been psychologists and letters and prior attempts and protracted conflict and years and furtive transit and paperwork and endless, deadening talk, but it was possible. Dear Polly, I encounter a thought that breaks a little more my heart. You say, finally, that race and sex are biologically permanent. You grow from a child to an adult, an alien may become a citizen, and so on, but where you have a permanent characteristic, it is on the basis of one's birth that one becomes a member of that caste. It is completely imposed upon one, and there is no way that one can escape. I don't know when this thought, the finality of it, seized you. Was it your admiration of Mary Daly, her writing, her beautiful tan? Was it that you could no longer bear hope's disappointment? Was it that you were, in some important way, already dead? All I know is that, by the end of your life, having discovered no other way, you had become convinced that race, that sex, were closed forms. Polly, listen. They aren't. It isn't. Dear Polly, if you were alive now, I suspect I wouldn't so admire you. Lawyer, priest, National Organization of Women acquainted with the president's wife. But because you are dead, I do. Of course, if you were alive now, you wouldn't be in every important way you. I spend my whole life trying to convince my students of this. Our categories have histories, I say, gesturing wildly with my little nub of chalk. There, at work, I use words like contingency, discursive formations, rupture, and yet... Today, walking with F around our Massachusetts town, I insist, as always, on a circular route. Coffee, then groceries, then flowers, for its tender efficiency. Oh, Polly, how can I help it? The first, the beautiful thought. You. Dear Polly, I have been wasting time. Doom is, among other things, why I'm here, trying to speak to you. Dear Polly, I guess the truth is that I am not brave. Do not want to be brave. I want my classes, my students, my domestic poems. I want to move in small circles. I want 20 minutes in the morning, the blue couch, my blue room. Dear Polly, across the country, across the Senates and House chambers and governors' desks and Twitter feeds and liberal papers, some they is busy legislating sex, race, the people, the human, etc. as closed forms. They are busy, that is, making life impossible, always in the name of life. I can offer endless, impersonal explanations, but I feel it first as numb hand, clenched thought, bird in the throat. What was it you said? Race is the atmosphere we breathe from day to day, the pervasive irritant, the chronic allergy, the vague apprehension that makes one uncomfortable, jumpy. Dear Polly, even now, I can't say what I mean. Dear Polly, I am writing to you because I cannot write. Everywhere there is language, enumerations of the problem, diagnoses the problem beginning as far back as I can imagine, farther still. In class, I pace with my chalk. I circle the room, the words, e.g. neoliberalism, biopolitics, coloniality, modernity, the nuclear family form, and so on, draw desperate, crooked lines. I say and say and say, and what for? Increasingly, I think there's only one word that might matter. No. Dear Polly, the more I look at you, the more I am overcome with an eerie feeling, a visceral near identification that seems, against my better judgment, that it might rescue me. I have become frankly fixated on this image of you who are prolific amidst Jim Crow, the fascist American mid-century, the Great Depression, your endless dislocation in pursuit of meaningful work, the atmosphere of anti-blackness, the deathly race-gender politics of the university, your loneliness, your unruly mind, the thwarting of your trans desires during a tipping point when sex change was heralded as newly possible, fixated on the question simply of how you thought under these conditions, how you endured the present tense. Dear Polly, no. No, 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 no. Dear Polly, I am standing before a crowd of people I admire, talking incoherently about you, my pursuit of you. What everyone will remember is that I am lonely, or that I have formal questions about loneliness, about whether it is a feeling that produces continuity, a desire for continuity where there might more ethically be rupture. All day, they come up to me to report that they like what I said about loneliness, which makes me suspicious. Am I lonely? Am I lonely? My days are crowded with other people. Dear Polly, I look for as long as I can stand at one particular image. You as young man, you as Pete, you as self-proclaimed vagabond in a leather coat. I go tender for this image. You are young, little brother, so young. This is before Bellevue and the rest home, before the arrests and the intake forms in your desperate lines, before you spread beneath the knife in search of hidden organs, before the first end of love, before you are refused and refused and refused and made, I can't help but think, into the bravest thing. Black girl, black woman. Once, after a talk, someone asked if I thought the name, your name, Pete, was a biblical reference. Peter, Paul, etc. Honestly, it hadn't occurred to me. Dear Polly, as far as I know, there is no tense, not in English, to describe the shape of time you help me see. The was will be, the salted circle, the still not yet. Dear Polly, your name for her, your first great love, was Pan, Pete and Pan, the boy who would not grow up. The boy who returns and returns to the same house, the same window, though nothing ever is the same. Polly, the truth is, after all this time, I want him simply to have lived. I think this means, shamefully, inconceivably, I want to live, to have lived. And though no word was uttered above the tumult of advancing tide, you came uncalled and placed your hand in mine. Thanks. I think I kind of I'm going to read one more thing, which is not mine. I'm going to read you a June Jordan poem, and I'm going to do it because in the first place, I think I have an illness that a lot of people have, which is that as soon as I write a book of poems, then I'm like, oh my God, I can't ever read that again. Because I think that the writing is how I arrive to being the person that I am, who no longer needs to be writing those poems, you know? And this is a book in which over and over again, I'm trying to figure out how to tether myself enough to life in order to be able to do other things. And there's a poem in this, which is after June Jordan's Intifada Incantation, poem number 8 for BBL. But it's a poem in which I am trying to reach for the thing that I think that June Jordan has already taken me past or something. And so I want to just read this poem to you as a way of saying thanks for listening. If you've never read this poem before, it's important that it's in all caps. Yeah, so imagine that I'm yelling at you. Intifada Incantation, poem number 8 for BBL by June Jordan. I said I loved you and I wanted genocide to stop. I said I loved you and I wanted affirmative action and reaction. I said I loved you and I wanted music out the windows. I said I loved you and I wanted nobody thirst and nobody cold. I said I loved you and I wanted justice under my nose. I said I loved you and I wanted boundaries to disappear. I wanted nobody roll back the trees. I wanted nobody take away daybreak. I wanted nobody freeze all the people on their knees. I wanted you. I wanted your kiss on the skin of my soul, and now you say you love me, and I stand despite the trillion treacheries of sand. You say you love me, and I hold the longing of winter in my hand. You say you love me, and I commit to the friction and the undertaking of the pearl. You say you love me. You say you love me. And I begin to believe maybe you do. I am tasting myself in the mouth of the sun. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Cameron. That was incredible. The next reader is going to be Jennifer Espinoza, who is a transsexual poet. Her work has been featured in Poetry Magazine, the American Poetry Review, Split Lit Magazine, Gulf Coast Journal, the Southeast Review, MoMA Magazine, and elsewhere. She is the author of I'm Alive, It Hurts, I Love It, and There Should Be Flowers. She holds an MFA in poetry from UC Riverside and is a professor of creative writing. Everyone welcome Jennifer.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for surviving in this world long enough to be here tonight, I should say. I'm really excited to be here. I'm really honored to be reading with such an incredible lineup of folks who I am a fan of. And yeah, it's nice to see some familiar faces in the crowd as well. Okay, I'm going to set a timer so that I don't go over. Okay. I never wanted to write a memoir. Like, I really was against the idea. And at the same time, I found myself throughout my grad school, my MFA experience, writing a lot of poetry that was sort of like reaching back and giving voice to younger parts of myself. And yeah, I started to realize that despite my antipathy towards the idea of memoir, I was subtly writing one through poetry. And part of the issue with the idea of like a narrative memoir was that as a transsexual and as someone who has survived some pretty horrific childhood abuse, I feel like there was a fracture that took place. And a lot of my poetic practice has been giving voice to those fractures in the hopes of maybe finding some beauty or truth, and then maybe even some reconciliation or integration so that I can finally access that narrative. So that is all to say, now that I've written this, I might be writing an actual memoir soon, so keep your eyes out. I'm going to read a bunch of poems from my book, and then if there's time at the end, I might read a couple of new pieces. Can you all hear me okay, by the way? Okay, perfect. This first one is called Airport Ritual. The following is a true story. An anomaly is spotted. A woman is taken aside. "I'm going to have to touch you now," an agent says. "I am going to use the front of my hands on most of you and the back of my hands on your private parts. Is there anything you need to let me know before I proceed?" "I'm trans," the woman leans in to whisper, unsure if she means this as a warning or an apology. "That's okay," the agent says as she grabs the woman's shoes. "Would you like to take this elsewhere?" Before the woman can answer, the thing in her pants that set off the sensors suddenly expands, tearing through her clothes and revealing an amorphous blob of cosmic energy. It is purplish and void-colored at the same time. There is an impossible shimmer to it. It grows outward, enveloping the agent, the body-scanning machine, and the white dads in red baseball hats gawking at her predicament. Then the whole terminal. Then the entire airport. The military plans a strike in response. Some trans guy who fought for the right to kill people on behalf of an empire that hates him is chosen to operate the drone. Better optics, someone thought. When hit, the woman grows hundreds of times her size. The city of Irvine is pretty much toast. No big loss. Fox News is floating the idea of forcing trans people into detention facilities until we're sure they don't all pose the threat of having expanding cosmic blobs for genitalia. It's polling well. Meanwhile, the woman at the center of the plasma, or whatever the fuck it is, just wants someone to say one thing to her that doesn't feel like a kite string wrapped around an open wound in a warm, strong wind. But it doesn't happen. So she sings something to herself. A song she heard in a grocery store once. Michelle Branch, frozen food aisle, instant tears. She remembers her life, floats up into a cloud, gets carried away. No one can track her. She is dispersed, rained down upon the dirt and patchy grass where her old house used to be. Flowers bloom. People pluck them and give them to people they love. Everything is normal. Okay, this is called Every Day. You'll feel fear as a blue sky, a green light, a line of people swaying in place like grass. One is always emerging into something, out of something else. You've traveled by light to get here. Each panic attack had its own frequency. You memorized the language. It barely touches you now. All you've lost is blood, your old home, bits of who you used to be embedded in stucco. Every day was ordinary. You'd wake up and pretend to be a boy. You'd go to sleep and dream of being a woman. Eventually, you never regained consciousness. This wasn't a decision. It's just what happens when you realize how far away stars are, how old the universe is, how a life is an open thing leaking out into the air around it. You are afraid of being seen. You are afraid of being named. Even as you flow from street to street wrapped in dead roses, you'll remember who lives here. You can't wait to be able to say no to all of them. Okay. Makeup ritual. This is not another feminist poem about the tyranny of Western standards of beauty. Or maybe it is. As a trans woman, I'm still not sure what I'm allowed to contribute to the topic. According to some, I exist only to reinforce gendered violence. My body, a blade sliding up and down the legs of real women, forcing its way under their arms and carving the language of misogyny into every surface. Wow. Who knew I had so much power? I don't even leave the house unless I've had time to build a world on my face and make myself palatable for public consumption. Is it so wrong to be afraid when I've seen what can happen, when I've had it happen to me? In my life, there is nothing more beautiful than dissociating in front of a mirror and drawing perfect lines across the flesh, wrinkle to wrinkle, eyes rolling up into themselves, plastic pulling lashes into little curls. I live to cover my shadow with blood, to cake my entire image. For me, this means something like safety, like a hit of oxygen from a falling plane. The first time I saw my face made up, I couldn't help but cry it all off. What will I call myself now, I wondered. It helps to have a name, even though a name is a room you can never leave. Okay, this is called Birthday Suits. This is 100% a true story. I turned 24, and Dad decided to take another stab at making a man out of me. On his command, I drove us out to Hollywood, where you could get 3 sets of suits for $100. What a steal, he exclaimed, as though his enthusiasm would fertilize something that never existed within me. Regardless, I followed him into the outlet, and I allowed him to wrap the cheap, heavy thread around my tired shoulders, to salt the wound of my body with his idea of truth. I let it happen, but I did not forget what I was beneath the cover of the flesh. 5 million faggy mountains slicing through fields full of dreamed-up tongues and unnameable bluish grasses, each blade the length of a universe, stretching inward toward a singular point of life-sustaining unlogic. Dressing myself behind the heavy polyester curtain, I listened as Dad held the suit guy hostage with the oft-told tale of the night he encountered real-life biblical demons. How at first he felt their presence tightening inside his chest, and then witnessed them crawling up and down his walls, and how he prayed and cursed them in the name of the Lord until they dissolved like sugar into the dark. And he never said this, but I knew he was convinced they came for me next, and colored my nails, and stretched out my hair, and adorned me with flowers, and forced my inside places to whisper, "Woman, woman, woman," late each night at the moment just before sleep. And I knew he knew who I was becoming, and I understood what the suits were for. So I tossed them in the back of my trunk where they sat waiting for years, and the day I sold that car off, those suits were still in there. Okay, let's see. This is called Poem. This isn't a poem. I don't write poems anymore. Poems are where I used to hide parts of myself I was afraid of, so they couldn't touch me, couldn't remind me that I am not a poem, but a woman, not a woman, but a victim, not a victim, but a hummingbird, not a hummingbird, but a nest, not a nest, but a window reflection of a tree catching the last gasp of this afternoon's breeze. A long time ago, I decided I'd let the wind take me wherever it wanted to take me, even though I am surrounded on all 4 sides by concrete. This is how I became a living vortex of paper and pine needles outside your door. This is how I became a poem. I beat my body against the walls long enough that they began to give, and you heard my screaming, and you screamed back, and we were together. Once we finish rescuing me, I'll have nothing to say unless it is entirely clear and perfect and inseparable from my flesh. The poem, the idea, the self. 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 Okay, I'm going to read one more from the book and then a couple of new pieces. This is called It Doesn't Matter If I'm Understood. You'll still try to destroy me in your own way, maybe with your hands, maybe with your silence, maybe with your tacit approval of this machine. Here us women are, crackling like sparklers above a lawn, scraping diamonds from asphalt, giving praise to the mountains before us. Our love and our grace and our tenderness, enough to change the shape of the universe. You say goddess or you say dead girl. We live in the margins, but don't get a taste of the joy of being there, not without loss, not without broken bones and bandaged flesh. Our condition is nameless, and we know this, so we drift and deflate and let the wind have us. But we don't stop living, even when we sense our impending ghost, even when we finger the dirt and think, home. Our life was always a thing of magic, and magic is what lives outside of law. One day we will be allowed to exist, and you will never see us again. Okay, this is called form. I don't need a job. I need money. Nobody understands the difference anymore. I went hungry as a child, my shoes worn down to holes through which the earth became my mother. I don't need a partner. I need love. I don't need freedom. I need room. A room. Small room with walls to beat and beat and beat and beat against my working body until I am free. Okay, this is one I wrote like literally just the other day while doom scrolling. It's called January. What's in my bag? I'm alone with you, smooth and felt. We're manifesting toxic intimacy. Sky of pearl, perverse tree line. Babe, you've barely touched your wild dream. I have a theory. In this essay, I will embroider a palette. Your country's caffeine-free moss, timeless shit posting, fascism update, sea nested inside morning routine. Alas, powerlessness. Okay, I'm gonna read one more. Thank you all so much. This one is also called Poem. I'm a formless void and also the source of all knowledge and feeling, and I'm waiting for you to enter and define me. You're a car part. You're a clock. Wind bends to your will. You say when to all things. Inside me, you become reality, folding in on itself. I grow a face when you look at me. My lips bloom. Don't tell me what to say. I'll whisper your life to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. That was beautiful. Thank you all so much for being here. The next reader is Chet'la Sebree, who is the author of Blue Opening. She is the author of Field Study, winner of the 2020 James Laughlin Award from the Academy of American Poets, and Mistress, which was nominated for a NAACP Image Award for Outstanding Literary Work Poetry. Her debut essay collection, Churn Where, A Geography of Home, is forthcoming from the Dial Press in 2026. She is an assistant professor of English at the George Washington University and teaches in Randolph College's Low Residency MFA in Creative Writing program. Thank you.
Thank you all for being here. Can you hear me okay? Awesome, great. I'm going to set my alarm. There we go. Just a little context, Blue Opening is about origins, so origins of life, illness, the universe, as the speaker decides if she wants to be the site of origin through motherhood. The first poem I'm going to read is a poem that I've been told to stop reading first. Navel gazing. It's intimate to thumb a stranger's belly button, an over-familiarity I find titillating. In bed, I finger its ridges, its moles and follicles. It's like fucking a familiar but suddenly beard-bare man. You have to keep things fresh in long relationships. That's why people have children, new wrinkles in their thigh fat folds. Meanwhile, I have not outgrown the body language of a toddler. Love, a bodysuit snapped tight to my labia. Responsibility makes me anxious, so I don't know why I think I would be good at parenthood, but I love irreparable change, like a broken bone improperly set, like this Frankenstein-stitched navel suspended in my midsection. The epigraph of the second poem I'll read is Partus sequitur ventrum, which is the child follows the condition of the mother. It's one of the principles that made chattel slavery in the United States so horrific. It meant any child born of a woman enslaved was also enslaved. But here I'm looking at intergenerational illness and trauma. So the title of this poem is the Welsh word for a homesickness for a place to which you cannot return. Hiraeth. I feel furthest from where I've come when womb wreckage comes in clumps. Thick, slick ruby ruins from which I could birth spring, artichoke, summer melon. I thank the night sky for fertile blood, having mapped myself in moon and menstruation, but more in the muck I flush in monthly separation. Many in my family have been plagued by menophasia in early middle age. Fibrinous weeds causing their bodies to bleed streams, flooding lands no longer suitable for plants. This, our history, our modern matrilineal legacy. And then there was me, at 33, a still arable plot I was afraid to not plant and till. Obads are poems. Well, this is a room full of people who read poems, so I don't really have to explain it, but obads are poems about sunrise, often about lovers departing each other at sunrise, and this is not about those things. Autoimmune obad. It's not MS, she said, as we held our breath, my knee slow to show reflex, my shoulder collapsing when pressed. I went in for what I thought was a trap pole, what I can only describe as cadaver-like cold patches, piss streaming my legs, for her to hold my hand and say, it's all gonna be okay. Instead, I found her single negative, haunting in the glare of winter daylight. Pain root wrought from spine and scapula to each of my carpal bones. It's not a mess, a definitive from which came many derivatives, a stack of aisles alive with me, poems about sunrise, not about bright beginnings. Five facts about lupus. 1. A word I continue to reject. 2. From the Latin similar to the Italian, imboco al lupo, idiomatic for good luck. In the 14th century, the wolf lived in the skin, but now the term more synonymous with internal devouring. 2a, a running joke on a popular medical show. The diagnosis equal to crying wolf. 1a, I do not believe I admit in therapy. 2b, no clear transliteration led from the Romance idioms to the Germanic tongue of my pilfered peoples. In a similar way, my parents' gametes met. No one to know my body's vernacular, that it would mistake me for foreigner. 1b, I accept this list of words. Necrotizing lymphadentus and swell-scrambled nerves, positive SSAs and SSBs linked to congenital heart blocks in babies. 3, I want the truth to sound poetic. It's pathetic. 2C and D, I try to find fortune in a body that can pass for well, that has gotten good at lying to itself. I wonder what fortune will be birthed from bulbs burst from my earth. 4, for what was my body a vessel? For what will it be? 5, I do not want your sympathy, but I don't know if the you here is me. There's a series of poems in the book called Root Logic that look at the etymologies of words, and this is the second one, which is breast. Root Logic. Breast, burst, borst, brues, as in flesh of chest, as in the space between belly and thorax, the crib in which your heart rests. Bosom, as in seat of emotion, as in mind, thought, disposition. Memory, as in maman, as in, will I be a mom? Up in the air is an idiom, is where I am, is a movie in which the woman is not a hopeless romantic, is where my life is, between this and precipice. Is stress, unstress, unstress, stress if we're scanning, sonically palindromed, complete, whole. Here, my poetic jargon is thin, serious clouds and fine fiber shoals for which I grasp, try to hold. See, up in the air, I am up in the air about if I am something, a sum worthy of considering. Down on the ground instead of here in the clouds, I hope I'll find is and am to be satisfactory, to be enough of an answer. Creation. As I'm pulled between two poles, one of fracture, the other the illusion of whole, I ask myself, what is a poem? The confidence I had in a sonnet, the sure-footedness of an I am now gone. The problem and resolution structure I've been sold, from grade school to rom-coms, is actually an inversion. If the world began in Eden, then we ruined everything. Before the Big Bang, the universe was hot, dense, and steady. Was I once those things? The still of a lake without wind or rain? In this ocean, I may not know much, though knowing the thing I'm intent on returning, except this is, in its simplest sense, a made or created thing, from poema, from the Greek. Oh, I stopped my timer, whoopsie. The last poem that I'll read is part of a sonnet crown, and there are footnotes in the sonnet crown, and they're in these little prose blocks to imitate the King James Version of the Bible. And this poem is called Genesis. It's a direct address to a future child. Genesis. The epigraph reads, "This is not about when life begins. This is before and beyond life." 1. If we're to believe Genesis 3:16, in sorrow thou shalt bring forth children, I wasn't born from magma of my mother's clotted blood, placenta. I was born from sorrow. Her breakwater the last shore between me and the worry she'd teach me to suffer, to choose bruise, nailed meat of palm, to give to those who would, Paul needy from the nursed and nipple raw. Dear baby I may never meet, forgive me. I prepared scratch-made stews and frozen cubes in the soft-folded linens in your room years before you've agreed to be. I know my love will be overwhelming. This your grandma's gift, and I often misplace it. 2. I often misplace my grandmother's gifts. A gold ring, a watch, but not the locket. Her mother's necklace passed to me. Ruth in the Bible, the name of the faithful. Read as obedience, as faithfulness in the face of suffering. But Ruth in real life had Jesus, a pistol packed in her purse. Read, she put a bullet in more than one who tried to cross her. With it in her quick-whipped tongue, great-grandma could stop anyone. I inherited this and her locket, years after I combed her hair to silk, bristles tracing scalp, telling tales of tight buns she wore when she cleaned house. I have the coarser strands of my father's people, but I am more estranged from them than she, 2 decades decomposed, preserved around me. 3. I am estranged from them my mom sees as kin. She marks bond by blood in a way I cannot. Cain killed Abel after all, and Ham did something unspeakable to his father. Noah drank and was drunken, was uncovered, and Ham saw the nakedness and told his 2 brethren, and Noah awoke and knew what his younger son had done, but I, in fact, did not. The Bible taught me not to go around talking family talk, that I, full clothes, should bear blame for Noah's nakedness, a kid in church not sure why I hurt from my father's failures. I can see my mother and her mother and her mother in me. How injury can beget injury. How catfish fried golden with collards can be penance or love or apology. Oh, the shame of our humanity. That the thing for which Eve hid herself behind fig leaves. 4. Eve hid behind fig leaves from which I learned shame about masturbation. Would only do it under the cover, see Noah here, of darkness, distort my pleasure from God. Good girls don't touch themselves raw in the night, and I used to want to go to heaven. With the same outstretched palms, I'd search for glossolalia and labia. I'd imagine clit slipped against apples, wax velvet, heartbeat hooved, nipples pricked, moan making madrigal as drool pooled in bottom lip. I believed I was hellbound for this, wearing anointing oil between my legs, for praising her with as much verve as the manger-born Savior. 5. Mary labored for the manger-born Savior, her nest in Eden from which he was expelled. Even if I believe that she touched no other to be a mother, I cannot that she was not magma made in the matrix of another laborer. The ex nihilo or out-of-nothing nature of biblical teachings always corn-mazed me. The ease of God's choices. He said, let there be, and there was. Will you be so swift to answer my call? No thing comes out of nothing, so my fear that you won't meet me here will not disappear but can be transformed. There's nothing new under the sun, but there are new sons, so says spiritual mother Octavia Butler, and daughters to be born. And this is the last section I'll read. 6. There are new children to be born, or none that will make of me garden. If they are to be, I want them to be happy from gum giggles to loose chin skin. Sarah's son, Isaac, was born of laughter after her love took to another. Sarah's son, Isaac, nearly murdered because her husband believed a covenant required a severed jugular. I wonder who Sarah was when she was still Sarai, who my mother was before my brother turned her into a mother, before she suffered, who I will be if rotted clots don't run, rivulet my thighs, if both Eden and Eve in me thrive. Thank you.
Our final reader of tonight will be Annie Wenstrup. Originally from Anchorage, Alaska, Annie Wenstrup received her Bachelor's of Fine Arts from the University of Fairbanks, Alaska, and her Master's of Fine Arts from Stone Coast, the University of Southern Maine's Low Residency Program. Annie held a Museum Sovereignty Fellowship with the Smithsonian Arctic Study Center, supported through a Journey to What Matters grant from the CIRI Foundation, and was an Indigenous Nations Poets Fellow in 2022 and 2023. Her poets have been published in Alaska Quarterly Review, New England Review Poetry, and elsewhere.
There you go. Thank you so much, Subin. Thank you to everybody here, and thank you so much, Poets House, for having us tonight. This has been wonderful to hear you read. I'm going to be honest about how tall I am. Sukdua 2. Prologue. It's traditional to begin by telling you this was once Chada's Sukdu, and in the retelling it becomes my Sukdua. For the unfamiliar, Sukdu is story, and Sukdua is a story that's become a personal story. I've decided it's akin to how some people build familial homes. Oh, it's our ancestral family home. My greatest grandparents built it. Someone built on 10 additions. Another re-roofed and refloored it. And another stripped the interior to the studs. Isn't it lovely? In this fictitious exchange, I imagine that you are looking for what was once there. A rectangle of unfaded wallpaper, the pond painting now rent. The movement from Sukdu to Sukdua necessitates change, an authorial reckoning with what remains. My initial imagining was wrong. This is not a house or rooms that I reorder. Here, I am moving towards scape land, mass land, Placeland. Fall. No. Here I find myself and my timekeeping within it. No, that's not correct. Here. In March 1986, Augustine erupted. The main plume deposited 1.5 centimeters of ash in Kenai, Alaska. Significant pyroclastic flow was noted. By someone, I don't know who. The subsequent dome growth is comparable to pre-1883 heights. In 1883, the volcano's north side collapsed and triggered a tsunami. Scientists state the damage was minimal. Only a few vessels floated away. It's so nice to minimize loss when possible. The loss was related to the diminishment of tides and their pattern. Thank goodness for low tide. I too would like permission to stop reaching. It's nice that the dome has reappeared. What I'm trying to say is this. I've been absent collecting myself. No, wait. What I'm trying to say is this. Chapter 1. Like me, Gugwene is a fan of forms. Most of the time, she lives as her true self, raven-feathered, sharp-eyed, and sometimes, like me, she becomes her grandmother self. And I want to imagine that means that Gugwene is wiser. But you know, the truth is, she's only a different image of herself. Bored one day, Gugwene flew aimlessly around Yaganen, the good land. It was like being a child again and looking for fireweed to uproot. The thrill of deleaping the stem, throwing the naked stalk like a spear. Far on the edges of Yaganen, Gugwene's eye saw a dwelling with a shadow, and curiously, she landed near it. She shook herself and she became an old woman. She walked to the home, and half-human woman welcomed her in. There was no business of saying what strong teeth or big eyes between the two of them. Nor did Gugwene say anything about half-humans' divisions. Instead, she took in the woman's doubleness. From one angle, half-human woman has a face like ours. The other, I imagine, is what my face looks like when I'm alone. When half-human woman took Gugwene inside, Gugwene told her, "I want you to be my baby. I'll swaddle you, rock you, and I'll call you my own." This is the not yet traditional part of the story. In the original, only Gugwene spoke her desire. Me, I'm listening for half-human woman, her longing to belong to someone, and her consent's silence. Chapter 2. Gugwene swaddled half-human woman. She rocked her and then pretended that half-human woman. My goodness, that is such a mouthful to say. Every time. Why don't we give her a nickname? Something easier to say. We can call her Sally, a familiar and short name. Gugwene pretended that Sally was a colicky baby. She pretended Sally cried and was naughty. So traditionally speaking, the Sukdu doesn't tell us how Sally was imagined to be naughty. Perhaps it's better that way, when Gugwene caws, "Bad baby, bad," and tosses the bundle over a ledge, each of us may project into the scene our own definitions of badness and goodness. Each of us may imagine our own misbehavior, bundle it, and chuck it into the abyss. I understand this may be uncomfortable for you. Here is permission. You may pretend along with me. Deleted chapter. Here's a different way to say it. My mom and I are back to school clothes shopping, and I am a tulle-frothed desire for boho skirts and scarves. I think this is the part I must say nakedly. We walk through the store. We wait in line. No one says hello. My mom slips her hand out of mine, and she says, "Bathroom break." And I wait, my clothes clutched in a bundle to my chest. The pretty blue salesgirl asks if I need help, and I toss the heap on the counter, slide my mom's cash towards the till, pocket her change. Yes, yes, I've been helped. Yes, yes, I don't need anything at all. Non-accessioned instructional video on the swaddling of infants. When my children were infants, I swaddled them. Have you done this? Make a triangle with your blanket and place the baby's shoulders in line with the creased edge. Tip of the triangle below their feet. Lift the tip up and fold it so that the tip rests upon their chest, and now the fabric behind the baby looks like the wings of a bird. Enfold the wings around them like a mother goose gathers goslings. Pretend you are a goose. Pretend you are not afraid, tired, alone, worried, and in love. Have you done this when your children were infants? Have you pulled another's eyes, desperate to hear that they don't look like they belong with you, that they will, won't, might draw the eye like you? Have you tried to decide who you must become? A killdeer, a mockingbird? Chapter 4. After I ditched Not a Baby, I let myself into her home. And the creature, the riches she accrued, smoked salmon, cloudberries preserved in sugar. It was permanently summer in her kitchen. I wanted to stay forever, but her furniture prohibited permanence. On the lounge, I was comfortable enough as a little Chuda or a grown Gogoini, but it felt best when I was caught between the two. I split myself, and I slept in her den and dreamt disorderly dreams that were neither nightmare nor prophecy. They lacked sweetness and were full of drownings. I woke. I tried to eat. The containers resisted my grip. Only my knife remained palmed. When she reappeared in the doorway, my knife slid below her sternum as though I were a hunter field dressing an already cored animal. Perhaps I thought her body would become my cloak. Perhaps I was afraid. She laughed at me and pulled her hands away from what should have been a wound. There was nothing. She laughed again, and in my terror I asked, "What are you?" "Your people named me evil," she said. "But you came here, and you treated me well." And then she gestured at me. "Now back into whoever you really are." And my wings ceased impersonating arms, my tail plumed, and I came back to myself and flew away. For weeks now, I wake in my nest and look at myself in a mirror. My wing waves in front of my face, and I tell myself, return to who you really are. But it must be a matter of feathers and intonation that I haven't mastered yet. I know because my face remains, in spite of my beak, cawing. I have one last poem that is not part of the Gogoini cycle. How we came to know the size of the universe and what mysteries remain. I won't weep at the next apocalypse. The doomsday clocks continue to tick past the last mosquito, past Bill's cabin sinking in the thawed permafrost. Betelgeuse's eventual supernova is still 100,000 years away. It'll be old news by the time we see it happen. The starlight left without a path back home. I understand 2 dimensions best. A giant reel and a projector crank a gear backwards, and everything I ever loved reappears on screen. Let's set aside the problem of corporality. The beginning returns, and I hear you ask, what else is there in the world but the world? Chinon.
Thank you all so much for coming. There are books for sale out in the lobby. That concludes the event for tonight.